Welcome to the Here I Am podcast. I'm so excited to have our guest, Leon Logothetis, on today's episode on kindness and connection. Leon is a humanitarian and best-selling author. He is also the host of the Netflix series, The Kindness Diaries, where he circumnavigated the globe on his motorbike, giving life-changing gifts along the way to unsuspecting Good Samaritans. Leon's greatest passion is combining adventures with great, meaningful causes. His latest project is a film called The Kindness Within, a journey to find freedom. Through Leon's courageous quest, this story shows us that even in the depths of pain, there is light, that kindness can heal wounds, that connection can change lives. You can watch The Kindness Within now on Amazon Prime. Welcome, Leon.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you on the show today. We're going to talk about kindness and connection.
Sounds like fun.
So tell me a little bit about your movie that's out now on Amazon Prime.
So the movie is based on my journey to India. I used to be a broker many, many years ago now. And on the outside, I had pretty much everything you could ever want. But on the inside, I was very broken. I was depressed, no real sense of purpose. And I ended up stumbling across the movie The Motorcycle Diaries, which is a romanticized version of Che Guevara traveling around South America, relying on kindness. And I don't know if you've ever seen a movie that has transformed you or touched your heart in a really profound way. But that movie for me was The Motorcycle Diaries. So to cut a very long story short, I quit my job and I started to travel around the world relying on kindness. One of my first journeys was I hitchhiked from Times Square to the Hollywood sign. Then I hitchhiked from the Eiffel Tower to Red Square in Moscow. Oh. I bought a vintage English taxi and I drove it from Times Square to the Hollywood sign, giving free cab rides to people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I ended up living in Los Angeles, but I ended up kind of going back in and doing not necessarily corporate work, but I was running a production company. And then I had another moment and I thought, I don't want to do this. So I quit my job again. And I, this time, purchased a vintage yellow motorcycle and I circumnavigated the world relying entirely on the kindness of strangers. And at that point, I kind of got what I always thought I wanted. I was on Netflix. I was speaking in stadiums. I was best-selling books. And again, everything on the outside felt magnificent. But on the inside, once again, I didn't feel like I was truly where I wanted to be. And that's where we get to the movie. So I had what I like to call a dark night of the soul. And I ended up calling my therapist, having a really, really hard moment. And he kind of talked me off the ledge. And I ended up the next day going into this bookshop randomly on Abbot Kinney, actually, in Venice. And I saw the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, totally randomly. I'd seen this book many, many times, but this time I decided to pick it up. Opened it, and it said, Yogananda was talking to a soon-to-be guru. He said, if you reveal God to me, I will follow you anywhere. So I had an epiphany. I was like, oh my goodness, that's the answer. The latest answer anyway. So I decided to go to India and to find God. Now, I'm not talking about the God that lives up in the sky with the big white beard. I was talking about the God that lives in all of us. And the movie is basically my journey. I made a decision not to leave India until I found God. So clearly I'm not in India anymore. So I kind of gave away the whole movie. But that's basically a very long-winded answer to your question about the movie.
Okay. And so in your journey, you're saying that God is not something that's up, but it's something that's within. So were you searching at first for something external, to feel God externally, or did you eventually find it internally? Was it, because I know I saw the movie twice, I loved it. And I know what was interesting is that you spoke with different people of different faiths and they all had something in common. But what I love about what you're saying is it's more within than just the God above. So I guess my question is, did you find God?
So that's a good question. So when I read that quote, if you reveal God to me, I will follow you anywhere, I wasn't necessarily thinking about a religious God.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about a Muslim God, a Christian God, those types of gods. I was thinking about fixing what was going on inside.
Right.
But I also didn't know what God was.
Right.
So I knew that I was going to go to India and find God, but I didn't know what I was going to find. But you've seen the movie, and you'll notice that the more people that I meet, the more that it becomes clearer that God is within all of us.
Right.
And that's what I learned, and that's what I experienced. And I also realized, again, that I didn't need to go to India to find God, right? But I needed to go to India to find God. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I love that now you're here. Do you still feel in that zone that you were in India? Like what you found in India, is that still something that you're working on here? Or do you feel like you're in a good place where you are kind with yourself and you have that connection?
Look, obviously when I was in India, I was very connected, right? As the days and the weeks and the months went on, I became even more connected. But then I came home. And when you come home, I talk for myself, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of chaos going on. So that connection kind of dissipated a little bit. It doesn't mean that I don't feel connected now. I do. But there are times when I don't. So, for example, yesterday was one of those times. I did not feel connected. Yeah. This morning, I felt more connected. Now I feel even more connected. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. I mean, I go through it myself as well. For me personally, I do different kinds of practices to feel more connected. Are there certain things that you do to feel connected when you don't? Or is there anything that you do to maintain the connection?
Yeah. So one of the things I do meditate, okay, right? But I have like a hack, and the hack to connect myself to spirit, to source, to universe, to God, whatever you want to call it, is I find a song that touches my heart, that speaks to my heart, that gets me grounded. And I listen to that song on repeat until I am completely grounded.
Okay. Is there a song, one specific song that's your go-to, or does it change over time?
It depends. It changes.
Okay.
Like there are two specific songs now that I'm listening to. Like I don't. One of them I think is called Mass. I don't know who actually sings it, and the other one is a sutra by a lady called her band is called WHA, I believe. But so I'll listen to that like I did it in the car on the way here for 45 minutes. So I got into the car not feeling great, and by the time I got out of the car, I was in my heart.
That's amazing. So it's not like a pop song. Is it more of like like chants?
Yeah, it's chanting, it's Indian music, it's whatever it could be.
Yeah.
Whatever in that moment. Like the song Mass is actually a Western song that's just, very peaceful, very calming, and just takes me into this place of my heart, as opposed to the place of my head, which is where God does not exist.
Mm-hmm. Okay, amazing. One part of the movie that I really connected with was when you were speaking to the rabbi, and he said that, he thinks 50% of you is like spiritual, and the other 50% is like material, in the material world, in the tangible physical world. Yeah. And I connected with that so much because I feel like I have two parts of me. I have this part where, it's the physical, the body, you're seeking joy externally, and then there's another part of me that has that internal and like works on myself spiritually, and I feel like spiritually connected. So right now, would you still feel like you're 50-50? Does it fluctuate?
Thank you for asking me that question, because everyone loves that scene where the rabbi says to me, you're 50% in your spirituality and you're 50% in the materialism world, right? And I think to myself, where am I now? Right? And I would say that I'm 60-40 now.
60 spiritual?
Yes. I would say awesome. 60-40, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
That's very good. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Look, I like good things, right? But I would say 60-40. And it would be interesting to ask him, because you know how he was very clear. He said, I see through you.
Right.
I see right through you.
Right.
I would wonder whether he would say I was 60-40 now.
Now,
well.
yeah. That would
Maybe I'll go back to India. I'm not joking.
Just to ask him.
To ask him. What, you told me I was 50-50.
What am I now?
What am I now?
Yeah. Do you feel better when you, like, now that you're 60-40, like, do you feel more at peace when the spirituality is stronger? Because I know for myself, when I am connected, when I do my prayers, when I meditate, I'm more peaceful. I'm more content. Obviously, like, we live in a material world, and that's part of life. But I realize that when I'm in my spirituality's higher percentage, I'm more at peace.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely more at peace. Like, I'm more at peace now than I was when I got into the car. And part of that is because I spent 45 minutes listening to that one song that got me into, like, my heart, as opposed to being in my head, which I was earlier today.
Right. So one other thing that I wanted to bring up that I really loved too was, again, it was the rabbi scene that he's like, whatever you, like, he was saying, I'm overweight. I love my belly. And he was saying, like, oh, you have to love, like, you don't have hair. You have to love that you don't have hair and accept yourself. And I thought that was so beautiful. That was one of my favorite scenes from going to India. And what is the biggest nugget that you got from that? Like, what's the best message that, like, stays with you today, that, like, you're like, this is it?
So it's a bit of a cliche, but it's that we are all one. And prior to going to India, I kind of understood that intellectually. I was like, yeah, okay, we're all one. But I didn't understand it spiritually. I didn't understand it in my very essence. And after coming back from India, I realized from a purely feeling space that we are actually all one, and that you can get to that place.
Right.
That doesn't mean that, you know, if someone does something bad to you, you are like, oh, we're all one, right? Okay. But you can get to a place of consciousness where you actually feel the oneness. And I wish I could live like that all the time. I don't, but I have experienced it many times. So I know that the greats who say we are all one are actually coming from a place of absolute truth.
I absolutely agree. And I think one of the secrets, at least for me, that I'm trying to practice to feel one is to let go of judgment. So I feel like if we don't judge people, which is very easy to do because we're human, I feel like that helps bring oneness, taking away the judgment. Is there anything that, like, you say to yourself or you do to feel that oneness, or has it just become innate?
The more silent I get, the more immersed in nature I get, the easier it is to get to that place of oneness. If you put me into a nightclub on Hollywood Boulevard, the chances are I will not feel one unless I've taken something, which I don't do. So,
right.
But, you know, so it's like you get into spirituality, you get into silence, you get into nature, and something happens inside. It's like all happens within. You know how Sadhguru in the movie says pain and pleasure come from within.
Right.
That was the essence of the movie. The essence of the movie is that everything comes from within.
Right. So I think what's interesting too is going back to the kindness diaries. Like, you were helping people and you were going around the globe, and it was kind of like, it was the kind of like external things because you were involving other people as well. I feel like this one, you went within.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's something you tapped inside of you.
Yes.
And I think it's beautiful. I mean, it's amazing to give back. It's amazing to be kind to others. But the most important is starting with being kind with yourself. So you are the kindness guy. And I know, like, I've experienced your kindness. Do you think that, are you being kind to yourself?
Not always.
Okay.
Right?
Thanks for your honesty.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I came here and I said to you, I'm always kind to myself and I'm always kind to everyone, you'd be like, no, you're not. Well, that's a lie. And there isn't anyone on earth that is a perfect specimen of humanity.
Right.
So there are times when I am kind to myself, very kind. And there are times when I'm not. Just like you.
Right.
Just like anyone listening to this or watching
Yeah,
this.
of course.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's interesting you said that the Kindness Diaries was more external.
That was just the vibe that I
No,
got.
it's good. It's correct, because at the end of each episode we give an unsuspecting Good Samaritan life-changing gift, right?
Right.
And the kindness within is more. It's more like a movie that you'll watch this movie and the transformation will happen inside.
Right.
Right. And it's more subtle than the Kindness Diaries. The Kindness Diaries is like, oh, this epic journey with this crazy English man who's traveling around the world, being kind,
Right.
having all these crazy adventures. And this movie is more an internal adventure, as well as being external, because I'm in India, but it's more an internal one. And I want people to watch it and to be transformed simply by experiencing the magic on the screen and the love on the screen and experiencing it within themselves.
Of course. Beautiful. So where can people watch The Kindness Within?
So they can watch The Kindness Within, A Journey to Freedom on Amazon Prime.
Okay, beautiful. I've got the pleasure of seeing it before it came on Amazon Prime, and I watched it because I liked it so much for a second time on Amazon Prime. So thank you for sharing the movie with the world. I think it's something really important for people to see, and it really makes a difference. My last question is, where does this go now? Like, where do you see yourself going next? Do you have another kindness project in the works?
It's interesting. It's a great question, and I'm asked it often.
Okay.
And obviously, when you do PR and stuff for the Kindness Diaries or the movie or whatever, at the end, people always say, "What's next?" And I decided just to focus on the movie. I decided to put all my heart and soul into getting this movie to be as transformative as possible, to touch as many lives as possible. And I let it be that way. I don't know what's going to happen afterwards.
I love that
have no
answer.
idea.
That was like a aha in my brain, because I just wrote the children's book, and the question I get all the time, it was just literally published like 2 weeks ago. When's the next book coming out? Like, what's the next book about? And it's not just people, it's myself too. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do next? But really, like, I should take a step back and just focus on what I've put out there and how that can help more people and how I can grow it. So it's beautiful. I think it's a huge message that we should focus on the now and not be like, okay, what's the next project? Focus on what we have now. So that was a beautiful thing that you said.
Thank you. I don't know what's going to happen. We shall see.
To be determined.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you, and I wish lots of success with the movie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your time with us. If you've enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the episode with someone who'd love it too. You can follow us on Instagram at Desiree Meheruni or at the Here I Am podcast for behind-the-scenes content and updates. We'll be back soon with more stories, insights, and conversations that matter.